podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Ed, how you doing?
Well, yeah. I was going to say I'm doing pretty good, although I have a stabbing pain in the back of my back at the moment. But, hey, have Rantcast will power through game face on.
Absolutely. Talking of stabbing pains, we should probably talk about some of the football. So we've been away for a while. I've been dealing with some family stuff. Thank you very much to everyone that sent a nice message about that. Every single one of them has been incredibly much appreciated, and I mean that from the very bottom of my heart. So things are on the up now and getting back to something approximating normal. Are Manchester United getting back to something approximating normal, Ed? It does not look like it to me.
Yeah, I would say United desperately needed some oxygen and some painkillers right now. Rather like Anderson.
Poor old Anderson. Everyone's giving him a hard time. I'm pretty sure I couldn't walk to the shops in La Paz without needing oxygen.
I know, but it's funny, isn't it? The fat guy needed to suck on some oxygen after half an hour's play. Brilliant. Normally that's just walking down to the local Tesco's in Chorlton or wherever he lived. Anyway, look, United, how long have we been away? A month or so? Not been good. We were just talking before starting recording that it feels like all these games have bled into one. So United have played, Burnley and Preston and West Ham and Cambridge United, and I'm struggling to put together too many positive comments, except a whole bunch of positive results.
Absolutely. And, I have developed, partly through the kind of slightly sleep-deprived, altered state I've been living through, a profound affection for the current Manchester United side. I don't know, they're like an incredibly expensive Bad News Bears or something, where they're scrapping ever so hard, and in the end they get the win. But of course they are all actually pampered pre-Madonna millionaires.
Well, and that's the point, isn't it? So, not that they're pampered pre-Madonna millionaires, but I spend an awful lot of money in the summer, and I know this is not a fair argument to make, I guess, but there's a huge amount of talent in this squad. Some definite flaws, of course, and a hugely talented, experienced, knowledgeable, world-class coach putting it together. And yet the football is universally dire. Even when United are winning games, it's been dull. There's been the row about long ball gate at Upton Park. It's kind of conservative. The tactics seem to change. Even if he's been playing this 4-4-2 diamond pretty much over the last month, which everyone asked for, the style of football doesn't seem to have improved. And there's all these things you think, this isn't Manchester United. This isn't how we're supposed to play. What's going on here? This isn't the United way. Yet, what is it? 1 defeat in 19 games. United up to third, not too many points behind City, into the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. That second half of that narrative is all positive.
Yeah, absolutely. People often say about me that I'm optimistic about football, and it's not really true. I maintain, I predicted a draw against Preston because I honestly thought that would be the result based on our away performances recently. And with a little bit of the wind in a slightly different direction, it easily could have ended up being that way. But I do feel weirdly optimistic about something developing. Out of these 4 games, it's not good enough, obviously. Nowhere near good. I'm not saying it's good enough by any stretch, but there's been, against Burnley, there was a really solid, exciting 20 minutes at the end. Incidentally, after he went to a straight 4-4-2, basically. Same thing against Preston, right? When Young came on for Falcao, and he stuck Fellaini on up front, and they weren't plopping in long balls to Fellaini for most of it. It wasn't agricultural by any means, but it was kind of direct and straightforward football. But it looked really exciting for a little 20-minute spell there. And it's interesting because you say that everyone's been calling for the 4-4-2 diamond, but no one has been calling for it with Wayne Rooney as either the holding midfielder, as he was when Blint went off injured in whatever game that was, or on the left or right of that diamond.
Well, no, and he's been universally dreadful in any of those midfield positions. So I know we're the anti-Rooney cast, or whatever it is, but I can't remember the last time he actually put in a decent performance. Not even an acceptable performance. I think he's just a very poor midfielder, I'm afraid. And over the years, I think we've flip-flopped around on Wayne Rooney. Calling for him to play 9 and 10 for a long time. I think I was banging in favour of him playing at 10 because I felt he'd utilise his skills, both in terms of sort of spatial awareness and running at players and starting deeper. It didn't really work out. I'm not sure that his best performances were there. Really, in truth, his best performances in 10 years at Manchester United have all come at number 9. And then moved him to 8. And he was pretty poor. His pass completion rate is very low. He doesn't create chances. He doesn't take any shots. He doesn't score goals. He still tries the Hollywood ball. He doesn't seem to pick the right players out. His game intelligence just doesn't seem to fit the role at all. Funnily enough, I think his best game when he's playing in midfield over this period was actually when he played in that defensive midfield role, because he actually did a pretty good job in that role.
Yeah, and it was interesting because Van Gaal afterwards, it was a real did Moyes steal your phone moment about Van Gaal, because he was like, oh yeah, well, game changed when we put Rooney in central midfield. And like when I read the headline about that, I was like, oh my God, he has turned into David Moyes. But then you actually read the quotes and it was just like, no, I obviously don't want to play Rooney there, but we needed him there for balance and it worked. So that's fine. You can say that. The Van Gaal thing is fascinating to me. He's just not getting the best out of our best players, but he is still getting a lot out of our not best players. Young, once again, looked really good when he came on for that little cameo. Fellaini has been very effective battering ram. He's using Marouane Fellaini perfectly. Like, it's not exactly glittering praise, is it? It's just like, yeah, when it's not working, he's sticking Fellaini on up front and hammering the ball at his chest at high speeds.
Well, yeah.
It's fantastic. You know?
I mean, and some really odd use of tactics in many of the games. So in the FA Cup game against Cambridge, just a really strange balance to the side where Fellaini effectively started on the left wing and came in. So this was League One football all over from United. I mean, I guess you play to the team, don't you? You face. But Fellaini, the tallest man in the United side by feet, started on the sort of outside left, and then diagonal balls were hit at him, and it was very effective. Really not very pretty, but very effective. And United were really, I mean, we were arguing about it on text message, going that he's playing left wing, and you were like, no, he's not playing left wing. I was like, I'm pretty sure he's playing
up front.
So I think his starting position was left, and he was coming in. So, and it was clear that was a tactic to hit him with a diagonal ball. And it just felt like a complete mess. And then in the second half, I'd actually scored fewer goals in the second half and played a much more cohesive form of football. And it's been that kind of pattern over the weeks, I think. So there's been periods when United have played very, very poorly and have actually been quite fortunate not to concede so much of the West Ham game, for example, and Burnley. I mean, outpassed by Burnley, clearly outpassed by Burnley, out-created in a way. And much of the West Ham game. And then in those games, he's gone back to what feel like back-to-basics tactics. And, maybe much as Fergie used to listen to the Rantcast, maybe Van Gaal is listening to the Rantcast too, because I said a while back, I think we ought to go back to just a simple shape. What I actually meant was you look at the squad and you go, well, that's a 4-2-3-1 type typical Premiership formation, and we should just go back to what everyone knows while we're settling in. Actually, went really back to basics and went for straight 4-4-2, let's lump it upfield.
The thing about the Cambridge game was it really felt like he had identified a specific weakness in Cambridge. That's what it really felt like that to me, because he has not been starting with Fellaini up front and lumping it to him. That really was unusual for United to start like that. And one thing that I keep seeing people call Van Gaal stubborn, and I feel like it's crazy. The only thing you could say that he's done, which is in the realm of stubbornness, is maybe the handling of Herrera, if that is to do with some minor personal difficulty. But if it is actually to do with something a bit more serious, then who knows? But he's changed things constantly, and then the crowd hated the back three, and a couple of games later he changed it up, and Di Maria playing up front really wasn't working, so he changed that. Falcao and Van Persie really wasn't working, so he changed that, in mid-game, that one, and presumably we won't see it again for a while, the two of them playing up front together. I don't know, it feels like you can't say he's getting stuck in his ways and not trying things, can you?
No, he's trying lots of things. I don't think stubborn's the right thing at all. I mean, the Herrera situation is frustrating because... So my analysis of the situation is that Van Gaal is not confident in his back four and has tried various ways to protect the back four, either by effectively playing a five or by playing deeper players in midfield, more cover in midfield. And then the other major weakness is that he has no combative midfielder or no sort of very direct, energetic midfielder on the defensive side. And then up front, no pace at all, right? So he's constantly trying to compensate for these. And by compensating in one direction, he takes away something else from another part of the team. And the biggest criticism, I think, is not that he's stubborn, but that he's always changing. And they're really, I'm not sure that he's ever going to find the balance that he talks about. And it's become a cliche, hasn't it? By constantly doing that. It feels like he should build from a base. And this is me talking as an observer and a fan and not a coach, of course. But that feels the right thing to do. And then the second part of this sort of commentary on stubbornness is, well, you're missing that balance in midfield. You're missing that energy and that pace and that creativity. And the one player... everyone feels could add that, and he's not a panacea, but could add some of that, is Herrera. And it's been bizarre that he's been so on the fringes while United have been trying to solve all these myriad of problems.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And the thing about that situation is that the thing with Van Gaal is he's a very intelligent man. Whatever his personal flaws are and whatever the difficulties he's having at the moment and the difficulties he's had in the past, his intellect is very clear for all to see. And he's a teaching coach and all this kind of stuff. So he knows that there's something going on. And I wonder whether we're entering the phase where there's no longer something going on and actually Herrera's going to be properly incorporated into the side now. Because, he scored more goals than Di Maria this season, Herrera has, which obviously isn't a metric of any particular merit in and of itself, but it's just sort of like Herrera is one of our most important players every time he plays. And this isn't lots of people comparing it to the Kagawa situation, but it's totally different to the Kagawa situation because no one's saying change the whole team around to build it around him to get the best out of him. We're just saying, wait a minute, isn't he the solution to this bit of the problem that is right there on the pitch right now?
Right. So one commentator the other day said that Herrera's problem is that he doesn't take control of the game, i.e. he's not Paul Scholes. Well, no, he's not Paul Scholes. And when we talked about Herrera in the summer, I said I feel that people will end up being disappointed with him because he's not an impact player. And, he's a player that's busy all over the pitch. He does many, many things good. I'm not sure any of them are truly outstanding, although his passing is very, very crisp, isn't it? And the fact that he rotates the ball so quickly and gets about the pitch. I think he's just a great addition to the United side. And if anything, I think my opinion of him has increased over the season, even though he's not been playing very much, because I think in the here and now of this particular squad and the balance that we have, he's an ideal player for the United side. And it would have two other effects, which are really important. One is, if Rooney's got to be in the side, he's got to play up front. Right, we know that now. He's got to play up front. So Herrera in the side means Rooney plays up front. And the other is that in Falcao, who's shot or cannot perform at the level that we want him to, partly because the team doesn't give him the opportunities, partly because his pace has gone, that 5 yards, that 5% has definitely gone. And then Van Persie's in a 20-month-long slump with just a few games of spark. But in all honesty, there's very little movement there. So the other effect of Herrera in the side is potentially United would move to a system that only one of Van Persie or Falcao plays, or perhaps none, and that might actually be the best option right now.
I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? But I think there is an argument to be made that the biggest problem United have got at the moment is centre forward. That bigger than the centre-back problem, bigger than the lack of balance in centre midfield, is the fact that the centre forwards are so horrifically out of form. And I'm talking about Falcao and Van Persie because they're the only people with significant time in that position. I mean, Falcao, I maintain my staunch position as a Falcao apologist, in terms of the future. And I think one of the absolute horrendous things about this situation is he's going to score so many goals for someone else next season. We're going to spend a year acclimatising him to the Premier League and he's going to get his fitness fully back and then he's going to be somewhere else when...
But does it really take 8 months to get your fitness back? This is why I think the problem is like longer term. I'm not sure he's the same player as he ever was.
But I think he had a month out during that 8 months, longer than a month out with the calf problem, and his wife or his partner's just given birth to a baby, and just today, as we record this, or yesterday, and it's like, this is huge. This is like, so on Saturday when he's playing, he knows his wife's just about to give birth. His fitness has been all over the place and his confidence is absolutely shot to pieces. And I'm totally stealing this from someone and I've got no idea who I'm stealing it from. So I'm really sorry to whoever that is. But I read something that someone wrote, it was very good, about Falcao as an intuitive centre-forward and Van Gaal's long-term history of problems with players who are very intuitive, and that all Van Gaal's coaching methods are based on kind of reducing the level at which you play on your intuition and increasing the level at which you play on your intellect. So Falcao's got all this going on and is not being allowed to play to his strengths, either in terms of the way the team is providing for him or the way he's being coached. So I don't know. I am not convinced that Falcao's physically shot. I'm just not convinced about that. I think the ball doesn't bounce off you every time you get it because you've lost a yard of pace,
No, but the fact that he's not getting into positions to score and is stretching for those balls coming into the 6-yard box and missing them is because he's lost a yard of pace.
Right, yeah.
Right, so the ball bounces off him because he's got no confidence, and I don't know, maybe his touch wasn't ever that good. It was better than this, for sure. The ball, I mean, it comes to something when his first touch is worse than Wayne Rooney's. And I'll tell you what, it comes to something else when I say this, and Rankcast listeners, hold on to something. But I think United would be a better side with Wayne Rooney up top on his own.
Yeah.
Right now, in the here and now, I think United would be a better side, and I think that should happen. That doesn't mean, Wayne, Wazza, sorry, mate, doesn't mean that I'm suddenly an apologist for you and everything is forgiven. It just means that right now, I think United would have better balance. TM Louis van Gaal, 2015.
For the whole of 2015, he's just like going to sleep going, better balance, better balance, better balance, better balance.
That's right. The trainer coach is saying better balance. I think, would just be a better side. And in that way, you could get Di Maria and Mata and Januzaj all into the same side, and Blint and Carrick as that protective shield in front of the back four. And all of a sudden, you've got a team that looks balanced there, right? Or maybe it's not Blint and Carrick, maybe it's Herrera in there.
And one of
maybe
them,
it's not
yeah.
Januzaj, maybe it's Herrera.
Yeah.
But there's any combination of that feels like a team that is not without its flaws, but is one that is going to give you a level of performance that you'd be confident that would take United into the top four by the end of the season. And really, that's all that's going to count. Having said all of that, of course, Van Gaal's right, because United are winning games and United are in the top four. And it doesn't mean they'll be there at the end of the season looking at the fixture list. But right now, he's right and I'm wrong. But I still think that side would give United better balance.
Yeah, and this is the thing, isn't it? Because this is all total massive footballing first world problems, because I've been beaten for such a long time. But it's coming. You can't... And also the fixture list is about to get tough as well, isn't it? It's not quite there yet, but it's coming. Winter is coming, All the big teams are coming to town, or we're going to their place. And that's, that is going to be a test. And actually, we've not put in a bad performance against a big side all season. All our bad performances have been against mid-ranked sides or much lower-ranked sides. And interestingly enough, the Preston game was not bad by any measure. I think there were big problems with the Preston game. Falcao was really, really awful in that game. That's his worst game by miles, I think. And there's a thing that keeps happening to him, which is that he gets the ball and the defender comes into the back of him and he falls down and the ball bounces away from him and he doesn't get a free kick. And you can see him being driven to despair because his whole career, he's turned his back, felt slight contact, gone down and got a foul for it because he's played in leagues where that's the norm. And it just isn't here. You know, he's just not going to get those fouls. So you can see that. That's like part of the whole problem. But anyway, the Preston game, we were pretty functional. We kept the ball really well. And unlike every other game we've played recently, in the first half, they didn't have a chance. And if it wasn't for a kind of calamitous bit of positioning from old January player of the month, Tony Valencia at right back, Preston wouldn't have got near a goal, you know. So, I mean, I'm not saying that's any great shakes that we stopped Preston from nearly scoring, but we battered them in that game.
No, although they had more shots than United during the game.
But chances
and more
though,
on target.
I mean, honestly, can you think of a Preston chance in the first half?
Nothing too significant. I mean, you know, just pointing out that, you know, they did create quite a lot of chances, not good ones. So, look, I actually thought United weren't too bad in that game against Preston. Not great by any means.
No.
Actually gave the ball away quite a lot. You know, 20% of the time giving the ball away. I don't think that's good enough for 65% possession, but not so bad. There were definitely worse performances over this period. One of the things that does concern me, though, so if you look at the analysis of both United chances created and United chances conceded, there's a very, very tight correlation between chances created, chances conceded, and points gained, right? It's a really good correlation. And basically, you look at that analysis and go, United are picking up more results than they should do on the basis of the number of chances conceded and gained, and that the narrative that I've heard many people say that, well, what happens when United start playing well? You know, this is the optimistic narrative that says, well, you know, you're going to start playing well, it's going to start clicking, and then we're going to get some great results. The data might say that actually what is happening is that United aren't playing very well and just getting a little bit lucky. They're not conceding as many goals as they really should do, given how many chances they're giving away. And that maybe it's not a case of United clicking, but the other teams clicking, and the results start going downwards while the performances stay the same. And that's the pessimistic view of the world. And then overlay on that the fixture list, which, you know, after the next three fixtures does not look good at all. So United go away to Swansea, not an easy game, although given Swansea's performances, you know, up and down this season, mid-table at the moment. Home to Sunderland, you'd expect a victory. Away to Newcastle, again, another interesting game. And then this run of Arsenal in the Cup, Spurs, Liverpool, Villa, well, you know, let's not worry about that. City, and then Chelsea, and then away at Everton. And that's a pretty tough March and April, isn't it? And it would have been worse, bar for that cup game against Arsenal, because the Premier League game against Arsenal has now been shifted back to the second to last game of the season. Talk about what might be a Champions League playoff game.
Yeah, well, if we've got to play anyone in the Champions League playoff, we should play Arsenal, right? No, I mean, presumably they will lose whatever curse has been put on them by Alex Ferguson and be able to beat us again eventually. But anyway, I think it's really interesting, that thing you said about chances and clicking. And I think, you know, presumably the theory is that when we click, it will be very different in terms of the number of chances we create. But also, it isn't bad luck or poor performances by other teams that have kept our chances conceded to goals conceded so low. It's a combination of those things and the absolutely staggering form of David De Gea, which is, you know, the consistency now. And he has improved. That, like, there's no doubt he's better this season than he was last season, and he was superb for almost all of last season. So it's, I mean, that kid.
Yes, rather unfortunately, he let one roll under his body. At the weekend.
I mean that it would have gone nowhere. He was on the way to absolutely saving that until the deflection off Valencia. There's no way that's De Gea's fault.
It was going 15 yards wide of goal, I think. Yeah. Well, no. I think it's a harsh analysis to say it's his fault because of the deflection. Although the ball was under his arm, so. You'd say he wasn't very far away from it, so it doesn't look very good, does it? But no, I think you're right. It's a massive difference, right? He still hasn't signed that contract. I don't know why, because it doesn't really matter how many sponsors United have to sign, cover him in logos. They should give him the money, whatever he wants.
Show him the money. I mean, it's really quite worrying, all the kind of Jorge Mendes stuff with Falcao and De Gea and Di Maria and all that nonsense. It's like Jorge Mendes is a scary, scary man, isn't he? It's like, how can one man have got himself into that position?
Yeah, very crazy. Wealthy man. He's done very well for himself, hasn't he? So look, what's the sum of all this? So United got past Cambridge with a decent performance. Were abysmal at West Ham. Were outplayed by Burnley, unfortunately, and did all right in the cup. You know, is that the sum of all the games? And through that, there have been some consistent themes. One is, we're not passing the ball well enough. We're still struggling to transition out of defence to attack. We have gone to a consistent formation. It's pretty much a 4-4-2 in a diamond, or sometimes a straight 4-4-2 with Fellaini up front. We are playing a direct formation. I know Van Gaal waved around his dossier, but the stats show that United are in the upper echelons of long ball merchants in the Premier League.
No, they don't.
No,
they don't. Yeah, because like, first off, the first thing that anyone should do is, like, you know how like crazy stats nerds do non-penalty goals as a measure of a striker? We should do non-Rooney passes out to Valencia on the right wing, long balls played by United, because they should just be exempt. They're like in a different category of their own. They're artificially inflating the numbers. And also, if you look at the number of short passes we've put together, it's astronomical. So, like,
well, you can get all this data in my my weekly newsletter if you got it a couple of weeks ago. So United play a very large amount of passes. So only Manchester City have played more passes, and only Manchester City have played more short passes. But United have played more long passes or long balls than anyone bar Burnley, and more inaccurate long balls than anyone. Right, so maybe Wayne Rooney's at fault for all of that. I don't know, but it's definitely true that United do play a lot of long balls. As a percentage of total passes, it's in the 14% range, which is high for one of the good sides, right? So it's higher than City and Chelsea and Arsenal and Southampton and Everton and Swansea, or if you just look at the good sides, it's higher than all of them bar Southampton, who have a slightly higher percentage of total balls that go long. So, and that's actually not say it's good or bad, right? You know, I'm not making a judgment, although I do kind of think United should play in a certain way, but not really making a judgment about that, because actually United's accuracy with the long balls isn't bad. You know, it's not bad at all. And that's the point that Van Gaal was trying to make. It's a long pass, not a long ball, and they're going wide, not going straight down the middle. Although, when I heard him say that, I did think, well, the old Cambridge tactic under John Beck, and the Wimbledon tactic, for that matter, was to long into the corners because you're trying to create the chance for the second ball. But hey.
The other thing that's kind of interesting when you break down the long ball data is how wildly it varies. I mean, it's got a little bit more consistent over the last few weeks, but if you look at the kind of middle third of the season so far, it's going from 8% one week to 25% the next week, based on the opposition and whether we're home or away. You know, we play far more long balls away from home, and we play way more long balls against better sides.
Yeah, and I think what the real sum of all that is, can United win the Premier League or the European Cup playing that way? You know, absolutely not. No chance at all, right? The last team to win the Premier League playing direct football was Blackburn Rovers, and that's 20 years ago. And that was an anomaly even then. Maybe Leeds United before that were a pretty direct side. So United can't win trophies playing this way, but he's just being super pragmatic. He's saying this formation and this style of play will get me enough points to get into the Champions League. And it's all going to be proven out by those points. That's it. I mean, by going super pragmatic, he's risking alienating people. I'm not sure he has yet, but, well, you know, maybe some people.
He's definitely alienated some people. I can't say, and if you say something nice about Van Gaal on Twitter, like, you're going to get enormous blowback about it. You know?
Yes, as I said, I'm not sure Twitter is the real
but it
world.
is, though, in terms of, like, there's a lot of people who are highly engaged with Man United, you know.
For sure, right. The point being that Van Gaal has taken that risk of alienating people. He doesn't care. He's got a super thick skin. And he believes that this way of playing will mitigate United's weaknesses and get enough points come the end of the season. Now, that next period around March and April will decide that. Because if United's performances against the big teams aren't enough to get enough points, there's a real danger that United won't make the Champions League. There's a 5-way fight. Even if you think Southampton will drop out, it's 4 into 2 places. And that's Liverpool, United, Arsenal and Spurs. You can't guarantee any of them will fail. Liverpool are playing well. Arsenal are playing well.
Tottenham are playing really well.
Tottenham are playing well. So this is no guarantee whatsoever.
And assuming Southampton will drop out is also... We've reached a point in the season where I don't really think you can assume that. I mean, they might do, but any of those teams can go on a bad run from now. But we definitely can, because, we're having all these conversations with this big caveat that we're sitting third in the league, which is great, I mean, it's sad that it's so quickly become great to be third in the league, but it is. I'd rather we had those couple more points than all those teams below us. But there's nothing in it between now and the end of the season, is there? What is it? I think there's 5 points between us and Liverpool, right, in 7th. So, that is absolutely wafer thin. And we've had a good run in the FA Cup, but it's death or the gladioli, right? We can easily, we've been on the flowery end of that one every time so far, but that can easily go. One last thing before we move off the last few weeks and move on to some questions from listeners. The Rooney thing, was it a dive? Do you think it was a dive, Ed?
Yes, I do. I also think it was a penalty. So he definitely dived. There was no contact. Yes, he's hurdling the guy. He didn't need to fall over, but the Law 12 is quite clear about this one. So what does it say? It says reckless or dangerous tackle or attempt. Basically, the sum of that is that the goalkeeper didn't have to touch Rooney for it to be a foul. So it's a foul and a dive.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. And I don't think it was a particularly egregious dive. The response to it was hilarious. That game, apologies to those of you not watching in the UK or on a UK-based stream, featured maybe the worst commentary and co-commentary combination I've ever heard in my life. Maybe only the World Cups when you get Mark Bright and a kind of mid-tier commentator together. That's pretty dreadful. But Martin Keown was talking almost universally gibberish from the start of that match to the end. At one point he said, "Falcao's not hungry enough for me." I'm like, all right, listen, I'll take any criticism you like of Falcao's first touch, of his output, of the hugely disproportionate nature of the investment to the return so far. But have you seen what happens to him when he scores a goal? How can you say that man is not hungry?
Yes, no, I think Keown just lost the run of himself, to be honest. I think he lost his neutrality and he was so desperate for Preston to win. And this is me being... I think I'm pretty reasonably neutral on this podcast most of the time. I try to give a balanced view of things, but Keown was bizarre in that it was like a fan who really, really, really dislikes Manchester United, which he might do, and that's totally fine, being allowed to be on the telly and voice that concern, because he sounded suicidal when United were up. I mean, he went from deliriously happy and laying into all the United players, Falcao and others, to being really depressed.
Yeah.
Odd and funny.
And of course, the one time he did defend United was after Rooney's dive, because his name is not Rooney, in which case he would have no doubt hammered him.
Yeah, I think that is a very pithy way of putting it, but I think that's right. I think English players do get less criticism for diving. It's easy to attack the foreigners, isn't it?
It is, and then I did see some United fans going, "Oh, they're only having a go at Rooney because he's United." I'm like, did you see earlier in the season when, I can't even remember who it was, that Phil Neville took someone to absolute task, saying, "I'd be completely ashamed as a centre-back if I'd done that." Someone had their legs chopped out from under them and kind of collapsed and made much of a fuss about it, and Phil Neville accused him of massively diving. So it's not just United players that get that. I think that's Gary Lineker went crazy at Ross Barkley, didn't he, as well? So
this is true, and I mean, look, the media coverage of it was what you'd expect, really, because it's United and United is the focus, and Rooney is the United and England captain, so you'd expect more focus on that than, say, for example, the fact that Kevin Davis didn't get a red card when he deserved about 3 of them in that game. So, I don't think it's a big deal, really. I think that's just kind of par for the course. But there you go. Rooney fell over when he didn't have to, and so he asked for it in a way.
My favourite thing in the fallout from this game has been on Twitter, where WWE wrestler Bad News Barrett, who's a big Preston fan, called out Wayne Rooney for diving, and Wayne Rooney said he was going to get Steve Austin on him, and then they tried to book a tag team match with Kevin Davis and Bad News Barrett against Wayne Rooney and Steve Austin, which would basically be the greatest thing that had ever happened. But anyway, a slight digression. All right, shall we do some Twitter questions?
Let's do it.
Feels like we owe it to the listeners. It's been a while. Everyman Steve says, should United sign Gary Balance from the England cricket team? After all, LVG said he wanted balance in the side. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Although he's a cricketer, which might limit his ability to help us. At Look See Here, serious question now. He says, I'd like to think my faith in Louis was unshakable, but he's starting to test that. Any doubts creeping in for you yet? I know it's like sort of ridiculous. But first of all, like doubt is an inherent component of faith, right? So if something is faith, it must by necessity have a component of doubt in it. Just like courage is not the absence of fear, but courage is action in the face of fear. And like faith is not the absence of doubt, it's belief in the face of doubt. Anyway, that philosophical digression aside, I just think he's going to do it. I think he's building to something, and I think it's not working yet. And I basically agreed with everything you said about what he's trying to mitigate against, and he's not got the balance, ironically, the balance right in his attempts to mitigate things. But I just think it's coming. I think the problem will be is if he's overestimated the ability to grind out results this season and we don't get into the Champions League, then I think it gets very difficult. But if we do, I think we could definitely be competing.
So I'd say I'm not that concerned because his record as a coach is fantastic. I think he'll build a very good side with this United side. I do think he's kind of sucked into pragmatism. Don't agree with all of it, but he's trying to mitigate against all those problems. My problem really is when you just strip away the history of Van Gaal and strip away all those things that give you the faith. If you actually look at the here and now, it's not very good really, and he's making a lot of very strange individual errors, I think, in selection and tactics and how he's setting up his team, and it just seems to happen a lot. And I think it's because he's still searching, and I kind of feel that he shouldn't be searching still after so long in the job, that he should have found at least something enough that was gaining at least the sum of those parts in that United squad, if not more than the sum of those parts, but at least the sum of those parts. And I don't think he's quite done that. So, am I concerned about Van Gaal? I don't think so. Would I give him a pretty low score out of 10? Yeah, probably. But it's probably just about going to be enough to get fourth. If it isn't, then he's in real trouble, right? Because that's all he was brought in for. Although, what would United gain from ditching him if they didn't make fourth? But it would be a disastrous scenario.
This is the thing, it would be, but to not give a second manager a second season just seems absolutely bandanas crazy. I think the Moyes experiment was definitely best averted early because, anyway, let's not do the because, but don't see how you can do that again. Because, the thing about if it wasn't for Van Gaal's record, what would we be saying about it? It was like we'd be saying, well, this isn't working and the man should never have got the job, but he's had troubles before and almost always turned them round. And generally when he hasn't turned them round, there's been a political storm to deal with of some kind. So that's not likely to happen at United because it's not that political a club, relatively speaking, although perhaps you could say it's going to get increasingly political as Ferguson's, the long tendrils of Ferguson's reign continue to fade out. It never used to be a political club, but maybe it will become one. But anyway, I just, I'm still pretty sold on Van Gaal. And partly it's just because I think he's really bright. And it's always interesting to see what bright people do with situations like this. And I think, I don't know, I'm surprised it's as bad as it is. But when you look at what's happened, it's not such a surprise because there are a lot of things he wouldn't have budgeted for. He probably wouldn't have budgeted for neither Van Persie nor Falcao being able to score goals. He probably wouldn't have budgeted for the ridiculous defensive injury crisis. And I bet he did not realise how terrible Johnny Evans was because, like me, 2 seasons ago he believed him to be in the top 10 defenders in the world.
Yeah, that's rather unfortunate. Hey, look, we've all made mistakes with our claims in the media, haven't we? So that's right up there in the top 10 biggest mistakes in the world of football punditry ever. You should do that on the Bleacher Report.
I will. Where do you want me to put Paul Le Guen on that list?
Poor fine manager of Oman. Look at the performances.
I was rereading Soccernomics. There's a really funny bit where it talks about how basically Lyon's success was done in spite of managers rather than because of them the whole way through, because the managers were basically interchangeable. Really made me chuckle in context. Anyway, and one for older Rantcast listeners there. At Halvard Hordvik says, will we win the league now that Young is back? Probably not.
No, I don't think so. It was interesting. He put in a very good, 20 minutes against Preston at the weekend? Burnley? Which one was it?
Preston,
yeah, that's right. Stuck him out on the left wing, pretty old-fashioned, got balls into the box. It worked.
Yeah, and he then finishes off with also basil or coriander. Coriander all day, every day, son. Coriander is the king of the herbs. There is no herb finer than coriander.
Except for basil with its light, fragrant sweetness.
Yeah, all right. You want to take light, fragrant sweetness over a kind of incredible, pungent kick of flavour and kind of exoticism on your taste buds. Yeah. Basil's all right. Basil's good. Basil's great. But coriander is top tier.
Gonna have to disagree with you there, I'm afraid.
Good, that's fair enough. Well,
yeah, as always, we can just agree that I'm right.
Sure, no, I'm going down with this one. I'll agree to disagree. I'm happy with that. This is a subjective matter. Interestingly, some people really hate coriander, or cilantro, as it's known to American cousins, because it tastes really soapy to them. And scientists have identified that that's genetic. There's a gene that people that hate coriander share. Isn't that interesting? I thought it was.
Intelligence, I think that's the gene, isn't it?
Are you a proper hater? Do you hate coriander?
No, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. I just think I associate it with curry.
Yeah. That's why it's great.
Which is not one of the world's finest cuisines.
What? Man, this podcast is over. What's this incredibly crazy talk we're hearing? Next, you'll be telling me you think David Moyes is one of the world's finest managers. At _Taylor Ben says, are we really giving LVG criticism for what Fergie did for so many years, grinding out results without playing well? I read a really interesting Miguel Delaney column on the subject of this grinding out results without playing well thing, and he said it's being so badly applied to this United side because the whole point of that was teams that play brilliantly all the time and still win when they're not playing well, as opposed to just teams that never play well but for some reason get lucky and win.
Well, quite, yes. And those years when United kind of retrenched away from the full-on flair of the late 90s, there were still pretty successful seasons under Fergie, and that's not quite happened at the moment.
And also, we constantly hammered Fergie for how boring football was, I think. Pretty sure I remember that.
Right, yes, and I don't think it was anything as bad as this. I don't remember Fergie lumping it up to the big man up front.
The same person at _Taylor Ben says, lacking a leader in midfield, who would you get? Kevin Strootman, 1998 Roy Keane, or Captain Holt from Brooklyn Nine-Nine? You definitely want Terry from Brooklyn Nine-Nine in the middle rather than Captain Holt anyway, because Terry's nobody's going to mess with him, is he? I just answered this question to make that point about Brooklyn Nine-Nine, one of the best shows on television at the moment, but also to say there's no way in all that is good and holy we should be signing Kevin Strootman in the summer now.
No, knee injury again, so clearly we're going to move on from him to apparently Ilkay Gundogan, who's got no injury problems whatsoever. Oh dear, yeah, no, clearly Keane 98 would be the selection from all of those. I think United do have a problem though. Clearly he is after that ilk of midfielder, so an energetic, potentially ball-winning, box-to-box, can give United a bit of oomph in midfield. And it's not obvious which one, because the big names, Gundogan was great 2 years ago, been almost permanently injured from then. Strootman had a really serious knee injury and a relapse, and Vidal's had his own injury problems, plus it's a massive fee to get him. And I guess the other one you might think of is Paul Pogba, sort of all-action midfielder, perhaps more on the offensive side than the defensive side. Another huge fee and some baggage to go with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's the one that I'd have if I was just allowed to pick one, but I'm sure it's somewhat more complicated than that. All right, 2 questions in one here. At Fishdoll, first of all, saying, should Ander be a regular starter, and if so, who would you bench? And then I really like this one that came in from at that Trafford kid. It says, somebody please tell Van Gaal to put Herrera where Rooney plays, Rooney where RVP plays, and RVP where Herrera sits. That's just made me really laugh. Yeah, I think you drop one of Falcao or Van Persie, put Rooney up front and play Herrera in midfield, right? That's what we...
I think I answered this one earlier. Yes.
Absolutely. At Jack K. Holt says, is Chris Smalling the actual worst? Chris Smalling got a who scored 10 for his performance against Cambridge. I don't know if you saw that, Ed.
Yeah. Now, this is where statistics are wrong.
Yeah.
Because, yes, he scored twice, and that was great for him and all of that. But what a mess of a defensive performance. It was schoolboy stuff. Him and Evans, complete calamity. But he scored twice.
There's no way I'm having Chris Smalling the worst, because I know I was a big Johnny Evans fan, and hopefully this is a form thing, but it's been going on for a very long time now. I would have Chris Smalling over Johnny Evans in the side every day of the week and twice on Sundays.
Yeah, saying Johnny Evans... problem is form is like saying gangrene is just a little scratch on your leg.
All right, last Rantcast question of the week. At NR Miller 0102 says, is Falcao's I'm being subbed confused face worth his loan price? I wager yes. The thing is, I couldn't really see what number it was on that board on telly either. That board looked not that great, and maybe there was a fine missed or something, but yeah, Falcao certainly looked very disappointed to be coming off.
I think his short-sightedness might explain a few things.
But the problem is his first touch, right? There's nothing really else wrong with his game, really. Anyway.
He's not getting the chances because he's not getting in the right positions. His pace and zip seem to have gone. I mean, he's him and RVP running in treacle most of the time, and his first touch is abysmal. There's a few more things than just his first touch.
Okay, I'll give you that. But if you could just...
And he's squinty-eyed because he's blind.
I love him, though. I said that was the final question, but no, one from at Captain's Armband who says, which of the current Manchester United squad would both the Rantcast presenters most like to get a Valentine's card from? And I just want to include this because I want to know if you've got a good answer for it.
I don't. I want one from Louis van Gaal. Says, Ed, you are my Valentine. I'm sorry for all the long balls.
By the way, let's meet and have a chat, and you could give me some tips. Yeah, that'd be good. I don't know. It's a difficult question, really. I feel like I kind of want to pick someone that maybe hasn't got that many Valentine's cards, so I could send them one back, cheer them up a bit. Someone who's, maybe a bit down on his luck at the moment, and is also, a lovely chap who takes pictures of himself with dolphins. So yeah, Falcao. I'm having one off Falcao, although it'll probably miss when he tries to deliver it, and it'll go to the house next door instead. Something, or he'll drop it because first touch, something. Anyway, never mind. No, we'll just ignore that. So, Manchester United face Swansea next at 3:00 on Saturday, which should be a cause for celebration, but sorry, I want to watch it on telly, so I'm a bit disappointed that it's 3:00 on Saturday. We have to travel to a foreign country, some nice European travel for
That's it. The only Euro away we're getting this season, yeah. Sure, I mean, Swansea mixed results this season. They said up to 9th, so not so bad. Gary Monk's doing a decent job there, but they lost at West Brom last week. They tried home to Sunderland, but then they went away to Southampton and won. So
yeah, that was daylight robbery.
It was daylight robbery, but good result, a very good result for them. And they also lost in the FA Cup, and then got smacked by Chelsea before that. So yeah, a bunch of mixed results. I suppose that's kind of what you'd expect from a mid-table side, isn't it? So
yeah, and it's leaning towards the terrible as well, because without that Southampton result, which was sort of freakish, I think they'd be in a bit of a
12th. They'd be 12th. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
So yeah, it's not great, but they're not going to get relegated this season. They're not that many points away from, presumably being safe. And so I think that's enough for them on their budget. I mean, they lost the main striker, Wilfred Boney, over the winter period. That clearly that's not going to help them. But I think Monk's doing a decent enough job. They still play pretty much the same system of football. They do play a lot of football on the ground, so it's going to be interesting. United going there and lumping it forward, and Swansea like playing all the tippy tappy stuff.
Fellaini to start then.
Yeah, probably, yeah. So what are we going to get from United? We can't honestly expect suddenly for United to start playing magic football. You know, this is not heavy metal football of the Borussia Dortmund kind going to come up, is it? United are going to be pretty cautious. They're going to be out of the old Borussia Dortmund kind because...
Well, actually... yeah, I was going to say we're pretty much playing Borussia Dortmund football at the moment.
They're an interesting one, actually. Similar digression, similar question on Dortmund on the chances created and conceded. Just the other way around. They should be scoring a lot more goals than they are, but they're not.
Yes, and you think it will come as well. I suspect they will not be relegated, and lots of people delighted in saying, "Oh yes, see, Jurgen Klopp was a fraud all along." It's like, no, he wasn't. He's just managing under ridiculous circumstances, and yep, they've been worse than they should be this season. But my goodness, everything that man achieved with that club doesn't dissipate because of this.
Well, quite. And so back to the game at Swansea. I don't think you can expect a fluid performance from United. It's going to be more of the same, and I'd expect that Swansea will have a lot of the ball. United won't be very good, will be a bit frustrated and disappointed with it. Swansea may even take the lead, but if necessary, the big man will come up front and will knock a few balls in, and it'll be enough to get a result. You know, maybe even a victory, because Swansea's form is pretty up and down, and that's what we can expect. And if United gets 3 points out of doing that, then everyone will say, well, that's okay because we're chasing fourth, and that's all that counts with 13 games to go.
Well, not everyone will say that. I'm sure lots of people will be very unhappy as they were after the Burnley game.
So that brings up a question I had in my mind, right? So this debate around kind of style of football versus the points, right? And they're definitely not mutually exclusive. And in fact, if you look at the trophy winners over the years, style of football counts. Right? If there's any correlation, teams that play good football, attacking football and create a lot of chances win games, right? But at what point do we stop making that argument, right? So if United are chasing the Premier League next season, having qualified for Europe and get a few more players in and whatever, strengthen and chasing the Premier League, and Louis starts playing long ball football, do we go that it's all right then? If he starts playing kind of pretty negative football or shutting games down or scoring the first minute, start shutting games down Mourinho-esque, because I tell you what, he's a bit Mourinho-esque at the moment, is that all right as well? So how far does that debate extend?
I think it's a really interesting subject, and I can't help but think that any success that he has at United is going to be with a better style than is on show at the moment, because the real problem isn't the style of the football, it's the execution of the football. Like if we were playing the style and were defensively solid, and I don't just mean in goals conceded, I mean in chances conceded, because we remain ridiculously frugal at the back in terms of the number of actual goals we concede. But, you know, if this style was being executed properly, we would not be conceding the number of chances we're conceding. So I think the real problem isn't one of style, it's one of quality. And the best of our football has been fun to watch. It's just that's only happened for tiny moments, because we are not a hoofball side. Like, we're the big discussion and we're playing a lot of long balls, but we are playing tons and tons and tons of possession football as well. And giving Di Maria the ball and letting him run at players is exciting to watch, so
it is when Fellaini comes on and everyone just kind of gets sucked into hitting the big man, and I guess that's the problem. It's the easy answer, and it shouldn't be, even if Fellaini is far more useful to United this season than last season. I think it's running us down the wrong route. But anyway, that's another digression in a show of many digressions, I'd say.
One of the things that I'm very sad that we haven't done a podcast about, because I really wanted to say this on a podcast, is that it is very worthy of note that 100% of the time Manchester United have played away to teams with West in the title, Daley Blind has scored a very late equaliser. I wish that was a more useful statistic, that there were more teams with West in the title, because he would score more goals. But a nice quirk of fate nonetheless. A very enjoyable moment at Daley Blind equaliser, I thought.
Yeah, and he's done all right when he's been on the side with character.
Yeah, decent-ish.
Decent-ish, yeah. He's still got the same old problem of players running past him, and I think that's it. He's always going to be a decent-ish player.
Yeah, but he could be part of a really good side, I think. I think you could find a role for Blint in a really good side. Just as you've been able to with Carrick. Like, Carrick might be a level of class above Blint, but I'm not 100% sold on that idea. Blint's, at the end of his career where he could... I mean, he's at the side of his career where he could definitely develop further. I'm not sure Carrick at his age was a better player than he is, so Carrick's kind of a late bloomer, wasn't he, his best seasons? But anyway, a debate for another time, because we've done what can only be described as a podcast there, Ed.
It was a podcast. It was kind of strange. I've not had this feeling of podcastingness for at least 3 weeks.
Yeah, so I hope that this means we'll be able to get back on track and do some podcasts in a row. That will depend on circumstances beyond my control, but where it's possible, we will definitely serve up a rantcast for your ears. If you want to get hold of us between now and then, you can get Ed at United Rant and me at UTD Rantcast on Twitter, both of us at facebook.com/United Rant. Read what Ed has to say on unitedrant.co.uk, read what I've got to say on the Bleacher Report, and if you want to donate because you like the show and say thanks that way, you can at unitedrant.co.uk/donate. And a massive thanks to producer Tom, as always, for doing such a spectacular job with this bad boy.
That's great. Let's hope for 3 points against Swansea. I reckon Mara and Fellaini in the 95th minute from a punt from David De Gea with the assist. So 1-0 for United.
I'm going with a 2-2 draw. 2-2 draw for me. Yeah, let's see if he can't add Wales to the list of places where Daley Blint's got a late equaliser.
Very good. See you next week.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.